What's up dudes, it's Chad here at BarryBigPlumsFishing. Welcome to my 2025 list of my top 10 trout flies for small stillwater trout. You've seen a couple of previous years I've done this video and it will change from year to year depending on what I'm doing on that particular time. I'm fishing different venues, different styles, so this list will be slightly different to what you've seen on the previous 2 years because it's what I'm using at the moment. I hope you enjoyed the video dudes, let's get to it, crack on and see where we end up.
Williams Stalking Bugs.
So back in the days, guys, I'd use some of these big sort of stalking bugs here with the big 4mm tungsten beads, sort of dabbling away for fishing the shallows, you know, sort of bobbing it up and down in front of them, and they'd snaffle it quite often. But nowadays, where I'm fishing less of these waters, I tend to really like these tiny size 16 little stalking bugs, like when all else fails there, because they're much more versatile. You can still dab them away, you just have to wait for them to sink a little bit longer, but you can also cast them out and, you know, fish at sort of 20 feet or 30 feet out. You can kind of get a nice cast, it turns over, and you can just twitch it away and still stalk those fish further out. So still the best stalking bugs on the market in my humble opinion, and they're amazing. I haven't done as much of that fishing over the last couple of years, hence why they're lower in the list than they used to be on previous years.
The Humongous.
So here you have it guys, a black and gold Humongous. Very, very leery, as you see, very, very sparkly, a bit like a Christmas tree. I believe they call it a Huey up in Scotland. It's quite popular up there. I've had some really good success on that pattern here in the winter months. It's been a really, really good fly for me. I tend to fish it on a really long leader, like a 12-foot, 14-foot leader on a floating line, which is a very long leader on a 9'5" weight. Or I'll fish that on sort of an 8 or 9 foot leader on an intermediate line with either a slow figure of 8 or twitches, pause, twitches, pause, and I've had some great fish on it. I've had some really nice browns too. And also when they are bashing that fry, you will get some stonking takes on that when they want to chase. And because it's got that black silhouette as well, in the winter months when the water's that little bit harder to see, a little bit cloudier, it is very, very successful in them circumstances. You know, great fly, but there are some others that I use more than the Huey, but we'll get to them as we go on.
The Pheasant Tail.
So there you go guys, my first nymph of the list, the Pheasant Tail. I've had some good success on this over the years. I've been using it a relative amount. It's not my favourite nymph. I've got 3 nymphs I generally go to. This is the 3rd spot out of the 3. The Pheasant Tail, you get it with sort of beads. I quite like them with a red bead. I don't know why. I just quite like that. It's pretty successful for me. And it's quite a good fly if you're after brown trout. They do like the drab brown colour. It's one of those all or nothing flies. It doesn't look like particularly one thing in the water, but the silhouette looks like lots of different things that could be in the water. It's a good law of average flies. Again, with something like that, I would tend to fish it as a point fly, and it would be on sort of a long floating line, sort of a 12-foot leader, and I would always figure of 8 that. I very, very rarely sort of strip that back or twitch it, because I am after the more sort of wary fish when I use that fly. It's famous for a reason. It works pretty much everywhere. It's not going to sort of blow your socks off like when you're fishing in the winter and you get fish after fish on the more garish patterns, but it will catch fish on its day. And if you're not sure what they're taking, it's a very, very good bet to put on your line. Again, if you're after brownies, very, very good pattern. So Pheasant Tail, give it a go.
Fast male tackles, the Kick Ass Damsel.
So here you go guys, the Kick Ass Damsel, a fly that's been on my previous 2 lists, and there's very, very good reason for that. It's caught me a hell of a lot of fish. Even this year, it's done very well on it. Phil Dixon owns Fast Male Tackle. I recommend you buy them from Fast Male Tackle. I've bought this fly from other places. It just doesn't seem to be as good and catch me as many fish. So I'll put a link in the description, guys. You can get them in different colours too. You've got the standard green. You got the black and green, which is great in the winter. And also good in the winter is the cat's whisker variant. If I'm honest, I tend to really stick to the standard green colour. It's really, really good pattern, especially on an intermediate line. It's really good when the fish are fry bashing as well, seem to pick up a lot of fish. You get those aggressive takes. I've caught on that pattern at Chalk Springs in July when they just weren't taking anything else. I've just twitched it back and I've had aggressive takes right in the middle of the day in the heat. It's always really worked for me. I'm a bit of an advocate of this particular pattern. I really recommend it. But on a floating line, not quite the way to fish it, because they're not particularly heavy flies. Even if you put your sinkant on them, they work well for me on an intermediate line. Twitch back and figure of eighted, you can get some really, really great fishing with the Kick Ass Damsel. Check it out.
The Quill Buzzer.
Okay guys, the Quill Buzzer, or any buzzer for that matter of fact. I tend to prefer the Quill Buzzer because that's what I use and it works well for me. It will work every day of the year on every still water on the planet. A trout's diet, they think, is about 90% buzzer, chironomid. You know, in the winter months they take bloodworm before they're the buzzer. It is just a really, really effective pattern. But the amount of people that talk to me and they just say that they struggle with buzzer fishing, they can't get it, is just a lack of confidence in the technique. When you get it, there is no takes on this planet when fly fishing, like when you're straight line nymphing buzzers and they're on it, they will literally rip the line out of your hand, your line will go zzz, and it will go straight, and they will almost, if they were bigger, they would literally pull the rod out of your hands. That's how successful it is. I would fish the Quill Buzzer, 2 or 3 flies. I'd fish 2 buzzers on a 9-foot rod, which is my main rod, and on a 10-foot rod I'd fish 3 buzzers, and you literally space them equally apart. 12-foot lead is about right, you know, 4 foot between flies. Cast it out, and I tend to fish them completely static. You want a little bit of wind. If it's completely calm, this technique isn't as effective, so I just let the wind swing it round, little loop in the line, and about every 30 seconds I just draw about 2 feet of line and let go, and just let it. And normally when they lift and drop is when you get those stonking takes. The amount of people that don't have confidence in this technique is shocking, but I suppose you have to leave it out there. You know, it took me a couple of years to get any success with buzzer fishing, because I'd try it for 5 minutes and say, oh, this ain't working, and I'd give up and put on a cat's whisker or Montana again and go with that. But do persevere, guys, because when you get it, you will want to do it again. You feel them takes and you're not going to want to go. Wait for a little bit of breeze. Wait when you see buzzer cases on the water. You know, you see when there's a buzzer hatch, it's more successful. But I do really recommend this, and I've had a lot of fish on buzzers over the last sort of 2-3 years, and it's good lazy fishing really. You just cast it out, you put a little loop in your line if you want them to sink a little bit deeper, you know, mend your line, and you just let the wind do the work for you. It's very lazy fishing, very rewarding, and I highly recommend it. Quill Buzzer, guys.
The Black Mamba.
Okay guys, here you have the Black Mamba. You see the staggle there and the yellow head. This fly was designed by Gareth Wilson of UK Fly Fisher, who has just reopened his website. So you want the Black Mamba, go and check out his new website. He's back open for business, and this fly absolutely works. On an intermediate line, figure of 8 I've had fish after fish after fish in the deep depths of winter, when some of the other stuff just wasn't working for me. Figure of 8 again, arm wrenching takes. When I've been trying cat's whiskers and things and just not really been getting anywhere, for some reason this fly has just been really successful for me. It could just be the particular waters I'm fishing, but it's just been amazing. I've really had a lot of fish on it, so I can only really promote this fly. Sort of a 9-foot leader, intermediate line, figure of 8, and hold on, and you'll get some fish on it, especially in the deep of winter. But like I said, check out UK Fly Fisher, get your orders in. I recommend this fly.
The Red Diawl Bach.
Okay guys, so the lures are done. We're now on to the flies that have caught me the most fish this particular year, and we're on to the good old Red Diawl Bach. It is a very, very consistent fly. There's lots of ways to fish it, all different variants. You've got just your standard sort of red UV rib there. You've got some with like the white breathers on them. All sort of sizes really work, but I tend to favour size 12. You can fish this on a long floating line, sort of 10-12 foot leader. Very, very slow retrieve or static in the wind if you're using a team of them. You can use a midge tip line and literally washing line them. They're very effective like that. So I think what I would mainly say is slow movement with these flies really works. There is one difference when that isn't the case. I've had a couple of days fishing where the fish have not really been chasing flies that I put on like hares ears and damsels and things, and I've seen the fish sort of cruising a foot under the surface. I put on these Red Diawl Bachs here, and cast sort of 2 feet in front of these cruising fish and twitch them, and I've had good day sport by using them almost like a weird sort of nymphy stalking bug thing. That really works. But in the main, I'm going to be fishing these as sort of a team, you know, sort of static in the wind, or I'm going to be using a long leader and sort of really slow. And that's the sort of figure of 8 you're talking. Minimal movement. It could take from a cast, it could take a minute to pull the fly back in, but it does seem to work all times of the year. The only thing I would say is if you're using a floating line on a small fly like that, you might only be fishing the first sort of foot of water, so you may have to switch to an intermediate line or a dive free if you want to search more depth. So if you're fishing this fly and you're not getting fish, especially in the dead of winter, just vary your depth, because this fly does work all the time. It looks like so many different things in the water. It's a very good law of average flies. Just try sort of that sinking line, but a slow retrieve, and you definitely will catch fish on it. Red Diawl Bach, guys.
The green Diawl Bach.
Okay, guys, we had the red Diawl Bach previous to this, but my slight favourite out of these two is the green Diawl Bach, and the reason is I like to fish these two as a team. As you'll see here, I'll try and hold it up for you. This Diawl Bach here, the green, has a bead head. That would be my point fly, and I would quite often fish this slightly different green-headed non-weighted Diawl Bach as my dropper fly, and that would be my favourite setup for fishing the Diawl Bach, because that bead head just gets that little bit of extra weight and beds it in and allows me to fish that a little bit deeper without swapping to sort of a dive free or an intermediate line. Had tons and tons of fish on this. This was the particular fly that I was talking about when the fish were all cruising under the surface, and I was casting at the fish and just twitching it and getting some, you know, sort of when they were feeding on natural flies hatching. Very effective. All the things I said in the red Diawl Bach part of the video applies. Same tactics with these. I just slightly prefer the green variation to the red, but that's a personal preference and what I have confidence in.
The gold-ribbed Hares Ear.
Okay, guys, the gold-ribbed Hares Ear. It is a bit of a cliche, but it is a very effective pattern. It's a good law of average pattern. You know, it doesn't look particularly like one thing in the water, but it looks kind of like a whole bunch of things. So if you're not really sure what's hatching and you want to put something in that's going to, you know, kind of cover lots of bases, then the Hares Ear is definitely a very good pattern. I tend to favour the full in meal depth charge Hares Ear in size 12. It gives me that little bit extra, you know, sort of depth. I can fish sort of 3-4 feet of water quite easily with this thing. It's like a little bomb. It's actually quite hard to cast if you're using sort of a really presentation orientated line as well, but it is a very good pattern. You know, you can catch fish just about anywhere with that. It's a really good point fly, especially this depth charge version. It anchors your flies in because it's so heavy. You can get all different variations though. I used to fish the flashback Hares Ear quite a lot back in the day when I used to fish tented and trout water. That's a very good pattern. You don't have to get the tungsten ones. They fish just as well with the brass bead ones. You just fish a little bit slower. You know, you can fish all different ways. Again, long floating line I tend to use with this sort of 12 feet line, and I can either twitch it back with pauses in. That tends to get an aggressive response, or the good old figure of 8. It works literally all the way through the year, from the depths of winter to the summer. It's just a great fly. You'll catch browns on it, you'll catch spartics, you'll catch tiger trout. All trout you're going to fish for will take a Hares Ear. It's not the flashiest pattern in the world, but it bleeding well works. So I can only recommend it. And my particular choice is the depth charge Hares Ear from Full In Mill.
Blue Flash Damsel.
Often when I'm fishing, I get sort of a new person to the sport come up to me and ask me a question along the lines of, what fly should I use? I'm new to the sport, I don't know what to do. I always offer them the same advice. If you're not sure when you turn up at a new water what to use, your best bet is just to put on a Blue Flash Damsel. You will catch fish. There's various different sort of variations out there. One of my favourites is the Martin Williams sort of brass bead and tungsten damsels. They're very flashy, very good with recently stocked fish, and very heavy as well for the winter when the fish want to chase. Great pattern. You will catch loads of fish on this, no problem. I always recommend Martin Williams flies. They're very high quality and they catch fish, so what can I say? Great pattern. And my personal favourite would be the Full In Mill Blue Flash Damsel, a little bit more subdued there in size 10. That's more sort of on a slow figure of 8 retrieve on a long floating line or an intermediate line. That's caught me more fish than just about anything else in my fly box, to be honest. Figure of 8, stonking takes, intermediate line, long leader, floating line. You really can't go wrong with it. You know, in the depths of winter, you just fish it on a sinking line. It works everywhere. You know, I've caught so many fish over this time and there, and I can only really give you this list on what's worked for me this year, and I've used these flies, and the Damsel has been a very good fly for me. There you have it, dudes, my 2025 list. I hope that was interesting for you. I hope it was some use for someone out there. I'll link each of these flies in the description if you want to pick up some yourself to try them on the still water. I wouldn't recommend anything I don't personally believe in. That's not my style. I can guarantee you all these flies have caught me plenty of fish over the past year. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you soon. See you later, guys.